Have you ever been there? You know, you ask an AI system for like a quick answer, and it gives you something back that just looks brilliant, perfectly crafted, exactly what you thought you needed. And you feel this surge of productivity, only for that fast answer to actually turn into hours, maybe even days of rework later on. That feeling where you end up spending more time being a sort of chaperone for the AI, checking everything, than actually, making stuff yourself. That, for a lot of us, is the quiet frustration of this productivity paradox. When these amazing sounding answers you can't fully trust become, well, a hidden liability.
Yeah, it's a really common trap, isn't it? What looks like raw speed, right up front, often ends up costing you big time in checking and fixing things later.
Exactly.
But today, we're going to dig into a major shift that promises to fundamentally change that whole dynamic.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack GPT-5's, well, pretty significant pivot. This isn't just about flashy stuff or amazing writing anymore. It's about prioritizing something much more basic: truth, reliability. We're going to explore how this new focus unlocks what we're calling real speed, the kind that actually helps your workflow, and really importantly, how you can put these improvements to work right away.
And this deep dive, it's not just talk. It's grounded in some really interesting material. The official GPT-5 System Card, quite a few third-party results, and some clear, practical ways to cut down on those, let's face it, annoying LLM hallucinations we've all bumped into.
Okay, so let's really get into this productivity paradox. We've all seen it, right? You ask the AI for something pretty substantial, maybe a literature review, a complex plan for migrating systems, perhaps even a legal summary.
Yeah.
And the output, it looks great, the writing flows, the structure's perfect, and for a second you think, wow, this is incredible. But then comes the moment you actually look closely.
And that's when you start noticing things. A crucial date is just slightly off, or a legal case it cited, completely made up. Or maybe there's a phantom API call in the code snippet that just doesn't exist. And suddenly, your job changes completely. You're not creating anymore. You're like painstakingly fact-checking. You become this AI chaperone, and all that time you thought you saved, poof, gone. Often you spend even more time fixing it. It's kind of like buying a car that looks fantastic, but needs constant, expensive repairs you didn't expect.
And these aren't just little isolated glitches. Our sources point to three main ways this happens, this sort of routine tax from LLM hallucinations. First up, there's the hidden verification cost.
Okay.
You might save, say, 5 minutes drafting something, but then you have to spend 10, maybe 20 minutes checking every single claim it makes. And this is where confidently wrong answers, because they look so plausible, can easily slip into important documents or, even code going into production. That's not really productivity, is it? It's just shuffling work around, often making it riskier.
And what's really crucial, I think, is how quickly trust just evaporates, especially when the stakes are high. I mean, imagine just one made-up fact in, say, clinical notes or legal brief or financial reporting. That's not a small mistake. It's a critical failure.
Yeah.
It could have huge consequences.
Absolutely.
So without that solid, rock-solid trust, teams naturally become hesitant. They keep these powerful models at arm's length, which really limits how useful they can be in the real world. It's like having this brilliant assistant you just can't rely on when it really counts.
And then there's the third piece: fragile multi-step agents. This is where that big dream of, truly autonomous AI agents often just hits a wall.
Right, the automation dream.
Yeah, because a single hallucinated step, it refers to a file that isn't there, or uses an old deprecated API, or even just gets a parameter wrong, that one error can bring the whole chain crashing down. If you can cut those errors, you move from this cool idea to something actually reliable you can delegate tasks to. And that's exactly where GPT-5's improvements are aimed.
Okay, so if those are the problems, the big question is, what's actually being done to fix them?
Yeah.
At the source.
Right.
Well, the GPT-5 System Card gives us a pretty compelling blueprint.
Yeah.
OpenAI seems to have made two really critical advances. First, they built a factual claim grader.
A claim grader.
Yeah, and it's not just like a spell check. It actually pulls out factual claims from what the model says and then checks them against info it finds on the web. And here's the kicker. When humans double-checked this grader, they found strong agreement. It's like the AI is learning to spot its own potential mistakes.
Huh, that's fascinating. So an internal fact checker for the AI itself, how are they actually testing this out?
So they're doing it at production scale testing
Right.
in two different ways. There's browse on, where the model can actively go look things up online,
Okay.
and browse off,
Right.
where others rely just on what it already knows internally. And that split is really important because it helps them figure out where the improvements are actually coming from. Is it better searching? Or is the model's core understanding and internal knowledge just getting better?
Got it. So the main strategy here is really hitting hallucinations right where they start. Teaching the model not just to answer, but to show its work, cite sources, and maybe even just say, I don't know, if a claim seems shaky.
Exactly.
They're basically lowering the error rate before you even get to the editing stage. That feels like the core of this big shift towards dependability in GPT-5.
Absolutely. And we're not just talking theory here. The proof, is in the numbers. OpenAI's own tests, comparing models head-to-head on actual user traffic with browsing turned on, show a really tangible impact. This isn't just lab results. This is real-world improvement, filtering down to how your team works every day.
Okay, that's the part that really matters. What do those numbers actually look like? Give us the data.
All right, so on production prompts, with browsing active, the results are pretty striking. Comparing GPT-5, thinking that's one of the modes, to its predecessor, OpenAI o3, they measured a 65% reduction in the hallucination rate.
65%, wow.
Yeah, that's the percentage of claims that are just plain wrong. And maybe even more importantly, a 78% drop in responses that have at least one major error. Just think about what that means for the time you spend reviewing stuff.
That's huge. That's not just a little tweak, that changes the whole error picture. And it's not only the thinking version, right?
No, that's right. Even GPT-5 main, when you compare it against the previous GPT-4o, shows a solid 26% cut in the hallucination rate and a 44% reduction in responses with those major errors.
Okay.
Look, these aren't just small wins for the scoreboard. These numbers mean fewer wrong facts, fewer big mistakes, which translates directly into, well, fewer tense meetings, fewer last-minute fixes.
Calmer stand-ups.
Exactly. Calmer stand-ups, cleaner reviews for your teams. It's this quiet, compounding effect of the model just being more dependable. And that's a huge reason why the productivity feels so much better.
You mentioned something earlier, this idea of the model saying, I don't know, that feels really powerful, maybe even a bit counterintuitive. The power of abstention, let's call it.
Yeah. It is powerful. What's really interesting is how just a disciplined no, or I'm not sure, can stop whole chains of bad work before they even start.
Right.
The system card actually reports that the Thinking Mini variant of GPT-5, a smaller version, doesn't just get more answers right, it also gets much better at abstaining on tasks like simple QA. Its hallucination rate drops way below older small models. It's incredibly useful. Imagine, working on a critical legal document, and instead of the AI confidently citing some law that doesn't exist, it says, I'm actually unsure about this specific statute. You should verify this. That's way better.
That makes total sense. So a model saying, I don't know, isn't a bug, it's actually a feature. Can you explain a bit more why a firm no from maybe a smaller model could be more valuable than a wild guess from a bigger one?
Yeah, it really comes down to catching errors at the absolute cheapest point in the process, right at the start, before one wrong turn leads to 3 more. That kind of safety net is becoming standard now, and it really helps anchor GPT-5's trustworthiness in day-to-day use.
Yeah.
It's about knowing when to speak up, sure, but maybe more importantly, knowing when to pause, especially if the information isn't totally solid.
Which brings us right to this key point.
Yeah.
Why this improved dependability actually equals what we're calling real speed.
Yeah.
We tend to think of speed as just how fast the AI spits out an answer. But if you measure speed, honestly, you absolutely have to include the whole workflow, the review time, and crucially, any time spent fixing things.
Right.
A model that churns out beautifully written nonsense no matter how fast it does it is absolutely not fast in practice.
Exactly. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, a model you can actually rely on fundamentally changes where your team's valuable time and attention goes.
How so?
Well, researchers can spend less time chasing down phantom citations and more time actually synthesizing brilliant ideas. Engineers can focus on elegant design instead of debugging code that was impossible from the start because the AI hallucinated an API. Writers can pour their energy into narrative, into voice, instead of going on a wild goose chase trying to verify every source.
And what about team meetings? I can see that changing too.
Totally. They can actually get shorter because people can generally trust the first draft enough to start working with it, rather than spending the first half hour just debating if it's even accurate.
Okay, that's the real shape of this efficiency shift. It flows directly from dependability.
Precisely. And just to give you some wider context, we can look at how GPT-5 stacks up in these broader AI reliability comparisons, against other models out there.
Like Claude or Gemini.
Exactly. Since direct perfect hallucination tests across different platforms are still kind of tricky, a lot of teams use these really hard reasoning tests as a sort of proxy for truthfulness. The thinking is, if a model can handle graduate-level questions or complex legal reasoning really well,
It's probably less likely to just make stuff up.
that's the idea. It's less prone to bluffing and fabricating when it
Oh.
hits something difficult.
Okay, so what are we seeing? Based on, say, third-party results like those from Vols.ai around August 8th, 2025.
Yeah, we're seeing a pretty consistent picture across these reasoning-heavy benchmarks. Take GPQA, for example. That one really pushes models on complex multi-step questions needing deep knowledge, kind of like advanced academic research.
Right.
Grok 4 is currently leading there at 88.1%, but GPT-5 is right behind it, very close at 85.6%. Gemini 2.5 Pro X is a bit lower, around 80.3%.
Interesting. What about something like legal reasoning?
On LegalBench, GPT-5 actually comes out on top at 84.6%. Gemini 2.5 Pro X is second at 83.6%, and Grok 4 is third in that one.
Okay, so different strengths. What about broader knowledge like MMLU Pro?
There, Quad Opus 4.1, both its thinking and non-thinking versions actually slightly edge out GPT-5. Claude's around 87.8%, GPT-5 is at 87.0%. So very close, but Claude takes that one for broad academic knowledge.
But then you mentioned MMMU, the vision one.
Right, MMMU tests models on tasks combining images and text, and there, GPT-5 leads the pack at 81.5%, just slightly ahead of Gemini 2.5 Pro X, which is at 81.3%.
So it really highlights these nuanced trade-offs, doesn't it? Like Claude might be strong on academic breadth, while GPT-5 pulls ahead on tasks involving vision.
Exactly. And this brings up a really practical point for people choosing a model. What about cost and latency?
Good question.
Well, GPT-5's input cost is significantly lower than the high-end Claude versions. Plus, there's GPT-5 Mini, which offers pretty decent accuracy at a budget price. It could be great for things like background enrichment or tagging, where maybe a slight drop in top-end accuracy is okay. But the main takeaway, the common thread through all these benchmarks, seems clear. Doing well on these tough Google proof tests generally correlates with making up fewer facts. And that's really the core of comparing AI reliability.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, and your team? How can you actually start building for this improved dependability?
Yeah, how do you make it real?
The GPT-5 System Card actually offers a great playbook here. It suggests turning this trustworthiness into just a normal part of how you operate without needing like heavy, complicated processes.
Okay, what are some key patterns?
One absolutely critical one is to instrument claims and sources. Basically, ask the model to pull out its key factual claims as bullet points, ideally with links or source references, whenever it gives you a fact-heavy answer.
So you store that list right alongside the output.
Exactly. It makes spot checking super fast. You can just glance down the claim list. Verification becomes this single, efficient step instead of a treasure hunt through the text. Imagine reviewing a complex report where every key number is instantly traceable.
That sounds much better.
What else? Here's one I really like. Count abstentions. Keep track of how often the model says, I don't know, or asks for more information.
Okay.
And here's the important part. Reward that behavior when the data actually is missing, or the question wasn't specific enough.
So treat it as a good thing.
Yeah, it's not just about tracking numbers. It's about building a culture where a clear, I'm not sure, is seen as a strength, like a good professional knowing when they need to check something or consult an expert.
That makes sense. What else is in the playbook?
You should also route by risk. Use the faster, maybe slightly less thorough modes for routine stuff, but switch to the deeper reasoning modes for high-stakes work. And this is key. Tell the assistant which mode you expect it to use and why.
So it doesn't overthink simple tasks or underthink critical ones.
Precisely. And for anyone dealing with code or structured data, validate formats. If you need JSON output or something fitting a specific schema, ask for it explicitly, and then check that the output actually matches that format right away.
That's like a first line of defense.
It really is. Also, constrain tools. Give your AI agents a limited set of tools. Be specific about which files they can access, which websites they can browse, which APIs they can call. Fewer options mean fewer ways for the model to go off track and start inventing things.
Okay, tightens the leash a bit.
Yeah. And critically, sanitize inputs. Treat text you get from outside sources, like web pages or uploaded PDFs, as data, not as instructions. Strip out or escape anything that looks like a hitting prompt trying to hijack the AI.
Ah, like protecting against prompt injection.
Exactly. That helps stabilize browsing and cuts down on those hallucination cascades that can happen when the AI gets confused by weird input.
Good tip. Any others?
One last one. Publish a tiny dashboard. Just track a few key things. Claim count, source count, abstentions, maybe time to approval for generated content. If you see those numbers drifting, it's a signal to review your prompts or guidance. It keeps your guardrails working.
Okay, that makes sense. Just keep an eye on the basics.
And this all ties back to being careful when the stakes are high health, money, safety. In those cases, the model abstaining isn't a failure, it's just smart risk management, right?
Absolutely. A model that flags uncertainty and asks for a check is a much safer partner than one that just confidently guesses wrong and causes problems down the line.
The System Card really pushes for transparent measurement and disclosure, and it feels like teams should do the same internally.
Yeah, definitely. Publish what you measure. Keep a simple log of issues found and fixes made. When people see that steady progress and transparency, they start to actually believe the reliability improvements are real. But you have to keep earning that trust with consistent habits.
Which brings us nicely to operationalizing this, making reliability stick, or what we're calling the boring habits that win.
Boring, but effective.
Exactly. The winning approach here often looks kind of dull, and that's precisely the point. It should just become normal.
Okay, what are these key boring habits?
First, really define what success looks like for each specific task or workflow. Name the critical claims, the things that absolutely must be right, and understand the real cost if they're wrong.
Makes sense. Know what matters most.
Second, always keep humans in the loop where actual harm is possible. But then, automate away the tedious stuff elsewhere. Focus human oversight where it counts.
Right, targeted human review.
Third, just require sources by default for anything fact-heavy. Make accountability part of the process from the start.
Sources on by default.
Got it.
Got it.
Fourth, always store those claims and sources right alongside the output. It makes reviews super fast and traceable later if questions come up.
Okay. Keep the evidence close.
Fifth, rotate your third-party tests. Don't just keep hammering the same benchmark or you risk overfitting to it. Keep the evaluation fresh.
Avoid teaching to the test.
Exactly. And finally, when things do go wrong, share postmortems that focus on clear fixes, not on blaming anyone. Look for system improvements, not individual mistakes.
Learn from errors. Don't just assign blame. Okay.
You do all of this consistently, and this new level of dependability starts to pay off. You get quieter on-call shifts, faster approvals, cleaner audits.
Your backlog actually starts moving.
Yeah, because work stops bouncing back and forth for corrections. Meetings get shorter because people trust the initial drafts more. Incident reviews are quicker because the AI made fewer silly mistakes. That's practical, real-world efficiency in action.
Okay, so how should someone actually pick the right model for their specific needs, given all this?
We suggest a pretty simple buyer's guide. Choose models based on the rework they cause, not just the initial vibe or how impressive the output looks at first glance.
Okay, how do you measure rework practically?
Run a simple, week-long AI dependability comparison yourself.
All right.
Pick maybe 10 tasks that are really typical of your actual backlog, stuff you do every day.
Okay, real tasks.
For each task, insist that the AI provides a claim list and citations. Track how often it abstains as, I don't know. Time how long it takes from getting the draft to getting it approved, including all the review and fixing time.
Time to approval. That's the key metric.
Exactly. Score the final quality, then repeat the whole thing with a new batch of typical tasks the next week. Publish those results internally. The model that wins isn't the flashiest. It's the one that wastes the least of your team's time overall. You might find GPT-5's dependability really shines when you measure it this way.
That makes sense. So based on that kind of comparison, what are some quick takeaways? Say GPT-5 versus Claude 4.1.
Well, if your tasks really depend on getting a specific nuanced tone, or maybe a friendly coaching style, Claude 4.1 is often excellent. But if the absolute priority is disciplined sourcing, especially under pressure, GPT-5's dependability often feels stronger and tends to need less cleanup afterward.
Okay. And GPT-5 versus Gemini 2.5 Pro.
If you need really fast vision processing or handling mixed media, especially on lower risk jobs, Gemini 2.5 Pro is very quick and capable. But if your workflow relies heavily on careful web browsing, checking sources, and producing long, well-referenced drafts, GPT-5's precision usually leads to fewer edits and retries.
Got it. So choose based on the job and the real cost of errors and rework.
Exactly. Now, looking ahead, where are the gains likely to show up next?
Yeah, what's coming down the pipe?
Well, model capabilities will obviously keep improving. We'll likely see breakthroughs in smarter, more targeted browsing, even safer ways for AIs to use tools, and more nuanced ways of abstaining.
More nuance abstention. What do you mean?
Well, instead of just a flat, I don't know, maybe a graded no, something like, I'm uncertain about this point because X, but if you could provide Y, I could give a more confident answer.
Yeah.
That kind of guidance is even more useful.
Okay. And I don't know, and here's why.
Exactly. As these behaviors get better, GPT-5's trustworthiness will feel less like a special feature and more like just table stakes, expected behavior.
And our sources predict really big returns in two specific areas soon. First is source selection.
Meaning?
Teaching models to strongly prefer stable, reliable, first-party sources over, say, random blog posts or fleeting press releases. When an AI understands the difference in quality between sources, the chance of it repeating misinformation drops dramatically.
Okay, that makes sense. Better inputs lead to better outputs. What's the second area?
Tool verification. Building in simple pre-checks before an AI uses a tool.
Like what?
Like, before trying to read a file, quickly check if the file actually exists. Or before writing to a database, do a quick dry run to make sure the command is valid. These simple checks can stop complex automated tasks from failing right at the very end, which saves a huge amount of time and frustration, especially in those multi-step agent workflows.
Right. Preventing those late-stage failures, that multiplies the value of the model's base reliability.
Absolutely.
Okay, so putting this all together, the real story of GPT-5, it seems, isn't really about it telling better jokes or writing even longer code snippets. It's about wasting less of your most precious resource, your attention.
Yeah.
The words the AI generates will match the real world more often, and crucially, when they don't, the model will be more likely to clearly say so and ask for a check instead of just bluffing.
And the result of that is fewer emergencies, fewer fire drills, and more actual, steady progress. This improved dependability literally pulls your team's effort out of just policing the AI.
And funnels it back into actually building things.
Exactly. That's where the real leverage is.
So if you remember just one thing from this deep dive, maybe let it be this. Dependability is speed in disguise.
I like that. Speed in disguise.
Yeah. When you cut down on those LLM hallucinations, you automatically cut rework. Cutting rework shortens your cycle times. And shorter cycle times free up your team's mental energy for the harder, more valuable problems. That's the flywheel effect driving this new era of AI efficiency.
And it starts with careful engineering, like we saw evidence of in the system card, but it continues with those small, consistent team habits we talked about.
Right. So make those habits normal for your team. Instrument your claims. Reward abstention when it's appropriate. Constrain the tools the AI uses. Sanitize your inputs, validate the outputs, measure what really matters, like that time to approval metric.
And share what you learn.
Yes.
Share what you learn. These seemingly boring habits, they add up. They give you this quiet but incredibly powerful competitive edge that lets your plans, your roadmap, actually land successfully.
The AI race, it kind of started with a lot of flash and hype, didn't it?
Totally. Then it got better at listening, understanding complex prompts. But now what seems to be really emerging is an AI that's fundamentally learning to tell the truth more often. And just as importantly, learning to admit when it's uncertain.
That pivot feels like the main event right now. When the answers you get are generally grounded, checkable, your attention, your focus can shift back to the real work.
Yeah, the impactful stuff. Meetings genuinely get shorter, on-call shifts hopefully get quieter, and your product or service gets better simply because your team finally has the bandwidth to actually make it better. That's the underlying promise behind these GPT-5 advancements in reliability.
And maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on as you go about your day. Reliability beats vibe.
Reliability beats vibe.
Yeah. How could that principle, prioritizing verifiable truth over something that just looks or sounds impressive but might be untrustworthy, how could that apply to other parts of your work, or maybe even other parts of your life where fast might be secretly creating rework down the line?
Interesting question.
Just consider how embracing this kind of maybe slightly boring reliability could actually become your own quiet competitive edge.